The first sound was not a scream. It was a dull, rhythmic tapping, like knuckles striking wood from the inside. The noise came from a bedroom in a quiet American home, long after midnight, when every medical explanation had already failed. By morning, the doctors would stop taking notes. By nightfall, a priest would be called. According to hospital intake records from the late 1940s, the boy was 12 years old when the disturbances began. He was recorded under a pseudonym to protect his identity, later known only as Roland Doe. He had no criminal history, no signs of drug exposure, no neurological illness that could be identified at the time. His family described him as withdrawn but intelligent, polite, and deeply attached to his aunt, a woman who had introduced him to spiritualism and seances as a form of comfort during long winters. When she died suddenly, the boy changed. Witnesses later reported that the house became restless at night. Furniture shifted slightly, then violently. Scratching sounds came from the walls, always near the boy's room. Objects fell without cause. A heavy armchair slid several feet across the floor while no one was touching it. At first, the parents believed grief was manifesting in the child as stress-induced behavior. They sought medical help. Doctors observed episodes of violent shaking that did not resemble epilepsy. His heart rate spiked and dropped without pattern. His pupils dilated unevenly. When sedated, the boy spoke clearly in a voice not his own, delivering statements that did not align with his education or temperament. One physician wrote that the child displayed knowledge of personal details belonging to staff members that had not been disclosed. They increased medication. The activity intensified. According to nursing notes, the bed began to move on its own during observation. Not swaying, not shaking, sliding. Orderlies attempted to restrain it, assuming mechanical failure or hysteria. The mattress lifted at the corners. One nurse resigned the following day and refused to provide a formal statement. By the second week, the doctors stopped inviting students into the room. Psychological evaluation suggested dissociative episodes. Hypnosis was attempted and quickly abandoned. During trance, the boy's facial muscles locked into a rigid expression. His jaw tightened with enough force to crack a tooth. When the psychiatrist attempted to end the session, the boy laughed. The laugh did not rise from his chest. It came from somewhere deeper, with a rasping cadence that made transcription difficult. The audio recording from that session was later sealed. Church records indicate that the family contacted a Lutheran pastor first. The pastor visited the home and observed no immediate disturbances. As he prepared to leave, the bed began to vibrate beneath the boy. The pastor later testified that the vibration felt deliberate, intelligent. He recommended Catholic intervention. The Catholic Church did not respond quickly. In that era, permission for exorcism required extensive evidence. The family was instructed to continue medical treatment while clergy investigated discreetly. A Jesuit priest was assigned to observe, not intervene. He arrived with a notebook and left with his hands shaking. According to his written account, the boy reacted violently to sacred objects introduced without explanation. When holy water was placed quietly on a nearby table, the boy screamed and attempted to flee. He accused the priest of deception, using his full name, without having been introduced. The priest noted sudden skin discoloration along the boy's torso, red welts forming in lines that resembled words. The marks faded within minutes. Doctors were present during these episodes. They documented everything. They found no dermatological cause, no allergic reaction, no sign of self-infliction. When ultraviolet light was used, nothing appeared beneath the skin. The family relocated the boy to a hospital affiliated with a Catholic university. The move was intended to remove environmental stressors. The disturbances followed. Witnesses reported that the boy developed a sudden aversion to religious language, even when used casually. He became aggressive toward male authority figures and withdrawn around women. He complained of an unseen presence in the room, describing it as watching rather than acting. Sleep became impossible. When restrained for his own safety, the boy whispered threats in Latin. His medical chart noted that he had never studied Latin. It was at this point that the lead physician requested a meeting with clergy. The request was framed carefully. He did not state belief. He stated uncertainty. He stated that every known treatment had failed and the boy's condition was worsening. He stated that if the church had a ritual intended to address psychological disturbances through belief, it should be attempted. Permission was granted for a minor rite. The first ritual took place in a private room with minimal staff. The priest read quietly. The boy remained still, eyes closed, breathing shallow. When the prayer reached a specific invocation, the boy's eyes opened. Witnesses later reported that the color appeared wrong, darker than normal, with no visible reflection. The boy spoke in a voice that carried across the room without effort. He addressed the priest by a childhood nickname no one present knew. The bed shook violently. The priest continued. The boy screamed and attempted to strike him, restrained by 2 orderlies. One was thrown backward, landing several feet away. No one could explain how. The ritual was stopped. The priest requested permission for a full exorcism. Church authorities hesitated. According to internal correspondence, there was concern about scandal about the boy's mental health, about liability. Another priest was assigned, older, experienced, known for discipline. He reviewed the notes and requested a private interview with the boy. During the interview, the boy remained silent for several minutes. Then he spoke calmly, stating that the priest was wasting his time. He described events from the priest's past with unsettling accuracy, including a private sin confessed decades earlier. The priest ended the interview without comment and submitted his report. Permission was granted. The exorcism began in the boy's bedroom at the family home, believed to be the point of origin. According to witnesses, the atmosphere changed immediately upon the priest's arrival. The temperature dropped noticeably. Animals outside began to howl. The boy was restrained to prevent injury. The ritual proceeded slowly. Each prayer was met with resistance. The boy cursed, mocked, laughed. Furniture moved. Scratches appeared on the walls. The priest's notes described the sensation of being watched by something that was not the boy. When the priest commanded the presence to identify itself, the boy convulsed violently and bit into the mattress until blood stained the fabric. The words continued to appear on his skin. Short phrases. Threats. Blasphemies. The marks burned and faded repeatedly, as if something beneath the skin was writing and erasing. Medical personnel were present. They monitored vitals. They documented bruising that formed without contact. They noted strength far exceeding the boy's size. One physician wrote that the resistance felt mechanical, not muscular. The ritual lasted hours. It ended without resolution. Over the following weeks, the exorcism was repeated multiple times. Each session escalated. The boy's voice changed pitch and tone. He spoke languages identified later as German and Greek. He exhibited knowledge of distant events, describing conversations happening miles away. These claims were verified independently. The priests grew exhausted. One was hospitalized after collapsing during a session. Another requested reassignment, citing spiritual danger. The church considered discontinuing the rite. The doctors urged continuation, stating that the boy deteriorated rapidly when rituals stopped. During one session, the boy broke free of restraints and struck the priest with enough force to fracture a rib. He then stood motionless, staring at the ceiling, and spoke a single sentence in a whisper that was recorded in the margin of the priest's journal. The handwriting trembled. The ink smeared. After that night, the activity changed. The disturbances became quieter, more deliberate. The boy stopped screaming. He began smiling during prayers. He complied. He asked the priests to continue. He thanked them. Witnesses later reported that this compliance was more unsettling than the violence. During a late-night session, with only 2 priests present, the boy suddenly became rigid. The room fell silent. The priest recited the final prayers with deliberate calm. When he commanded the presence to depart, the boy's body arched violently, then collapsed. A sound was heard that one witness described as a deep exhalation from the walls themselves. The boy lost consciousness. He slept for nearly 2 days. When he awoke, the room was still. Doctors examined him. Vitals normal. No agitation. No abnormal strength. The boy spoke softly and asked for food. He asked for his parents. He did not remember the events. The priests remained cautious. They continued prayers quietly over the following days. No disturbances occurred. The words no longer appeared on the skin. Objects remained still. The house felt ordinary. Church records state that the final rite was conducted without incident. The priests left. The boy returned to school weeks later. His grades improved. His behavior stabilized. He grew into adulthood, lived a quiet life, and never spoke publicly about what happened. Doctors closed the file with no diagnosis. But one document remains, filed separately, never explained. It is a brief note from the final attending priest, written months after the case was closed. It states that during the last exorcism, as the boy lay unconscious, something occurred that did not involve the child at all. The priest wrote that the room responded, not the objects, not the walls, the space itself. And that response did not end when the boy awoke. In the weeks following the boy's recovery, the house remained under quiet observation. According to parish correspondence, priests visited unannounced at irregular hours. They brought no ritual books. They spoke no prayers aloud. Their purpose was not intervention, but confirmation. They listened. What they reported was absence. The home no longer carried the oppressive sensation noted during the exorcisms. No unexplained sounds. No fluctuations in temperature. No disturbances in sleep. Even the parents, who had lived for months in a state of constant vigilance, began to relax. Medical staff signed off on the case. Church authorities sealed their records. By all outward measures, the case of Roland Doe had ended. Yet the final priest's note remained unresolved. According to his personal journal, the moment occurred after the final command was spoken. The boy lay motionless, breathing shallow but steady. The room was silent. No shaking. No resistance. No voice. The priest wrote that he expected relief. Instead, he felt pressure. Not on his body, but on his perception, as if the air itself had grown attentive. He described the sensation of being acknowledged. The priest did not elaborate. He did not name the feeling. He wrote only that the room had responded, and that the response was not hostile. It was deliberate. Church authorities dismissed the entry as exhaustion-induced interpretation. The priest was elderly. The case had lasted too long. Stress alters perception. The explanation was accepted, filed, and forgotten. The priest himself did not forget. According to letters sent to a fellow Jesuit months later, he continued to experience disturbances. Not poltergeist activity. Not voices. Something quieter. He wrote of rooms feeling occupied when empty. Of prayer producing unease rather than comfort. Of silence that felt structured, as if holding form. He requested reassignment to a monastery. The request was denied. He died 2 years later of natural causes. His personal journals were collected and archived. Portions remain restricted. The boy, meanwhile, recovered fully. School records show no behavioral issues. Teachers described him as attentive, reserved, unusually disciplined. He avoided discussion of religion but complied respectfully when required. He did not suffer nightmares. He did not relapse. Doctors conducted follow-up evaluations for several years. All results were normal. When interviewed as an adult under condition of anonymity, he stated that he remembered nothing after the earliest hospital visits. The period of the exorcisms was absent from his memory, as if removed entirely. He described his childhood as fractured, but not frightening. He expressed discomfort when pressed for details and declined further questioning. Those who knew him later in life described him as calm to the point of detachment. He married. He worked. He lived quietly. He avoided public attention. When approached by journalists decades later, he refused comment. For most institutions, the case was closed. For some of those who witnessed it, it never was. One nurse, interviewed late in life, stated that the most disturbing aspect was not the violence or the strength. It was the boy's awareness. She described moments when he would turn his head slightly and look past her, as if tracking movement in empty space. She stated that during the final days he stopped doing this entirely, and that the absence felt wrong. Another medical orderly described a single incident during cleanup after a failed ritual. The boy was unconscious. The room was empty. The orderly bent to collect a fallen book. He reported feeling a sudden certainty that he was not alone, followed by the sensation of being dismissed. He left the room immediately and requested reassignment. These accounts were never entered into official records. Decades later, researchers studying historical exorcism cases noted inconsistencies. The escalation followed a pattern seen in other alleged possession cases, but the resolution did not. In most documented instances, residual activity persisted. Relapses occurred. Psychological aftereffects remained. In this case, there was a clean break. The boy did not slowly improve. He stopped. This abrupt cessation raised questions among scholars of religion and psychology alike. Some proposed misdiagnosis resolved through suggestion. Others argued for spontaneous remission of dissociative disorder. A small minority noted the correlation between the final ritual and the sudden normalization. No explanation accounted for the priest's note. The house itself did not remain empty. Years later, new occupants moved in. Property records indicate no unusual activity, no complaints, no disturbances. Life continued normally. Until one night. According to a police report filed decades after the original events, a neighbor called to report strange noises coming from the property. The sounds are described as rhythmic tapping late at night, coming from the upper floor. Officers responded. They found nothing unusual. The house was quiet. The occupants reported no disturbances and expressed confusion. The report was dismissed. A similar call was filed months later. Again, no evidence. Again, dismissed. The pattern repeated sporadically over several years. Always late at night. Always tapping. Never sustained. Never escalating. Always ceasing before investigation. Eventually, the calls stopped. No further incidents were recorded. Researchers who later cross-referenced these reports with archived church documents noted the similarity to the earliest disturbances reported in the boy's childhood. The comparison was speculative. No official link was established. The original medical team had long since dispersed. Some died. Some retired. One physician, however, continued to speak privately about the case. In a recorded interview conducted for an academic study, he stated that the moment he decided to involve the church was the moment he accepted that something outside his framework was occurring. He stated that he did not believe in possession. He stated that he believed in thresholds. According to his account, the boy exhibited signs not of invasion, but of displacement. He described the sensation of treating someone who is present but not fully occupying themselves. He stated that during the final exorcism, when the boy collapsed, the sensation reversed. The boy returned. When asked what left, the physician paused. The recording captures a long silence. He then stated that he could not say something left, only that something stopped. The distinction mattered to him. The church never issued an official statement on the case. It remains referenced internally as resolved. Seminaries discuss it cautiously, not as proof but as precedent, a reminder of procedure, restraint, and humility. In rare lectures, senior clergy have alluded to cases where the ritual did not expel, but conclude. They do not elaborate. The priest's final journal entry remains sealed, except for the single line that has circulated among scholars through unofficial means. It does not describe a demon. It does not describe a victory. It describes an acknowledgement. The words, translated and paraphrased, state that the presence did not resist departure because it was not commanded to leave the boy. It was commanded to stop. This interpretation is disputed. The original language is ambiguous. The priest did not clarify. He died without explanation. What remains is a case that defies clean categorization. A child who suffered intensely and recovered completely. Medical phenomena without diagnosis. Religious intervention without doctrine. Witnesses who describe not a battle, but a negotiation. The title given later by researchers, When Doctors Call the Priest, reflects not faith, but surrender. A moment when professional certainty collapses and something older is consulted, not because it is believed, but because nothing else remains. The boy lived the rest of his life, without incident. The house stands quietly. The records remain. And somewhere in the margins of a forgotten journal, a priest's hand trembled as he wrote that the room had responded, not with anger, not with retreat, but with something resembling compliance. No further explanation was offered. No further explanation has ever been found.